Kimberly Dvorak. Hey, Kimberly, what's the latest on the Iran deal that you know about before we launch into the others?
Yeah, well, I think that the development over the weekend that was big news was that the Quds force Soleimani, who is on the U.S. terror watch list, he was quietly allowed. I guess the Iranians allowed him, or actually they broke the agreement and allowed him to go to Russia, where he was meeting with Putin and the other henchmen there. And guess what he was doing? They were purchasing weapons. So we already now have our first breakage of the agreement that really hasn't even been around for more than 2 weeks. And the United States really didn't want to talk about that. The president didn't want to talk about that. Nobody really wanted to talk about that this weekend, but that's substantial because, as you know, the Middle East is really under fire. And, we've got the Shias who are trying to control the region, which is the Iranians. And then we have the Sunnis, which are the, Islamic State, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, whatever you want to call them these days. You've got terrorists versus the Shiites. And eventually it's going to come down to a regional war. One will victor and one will not. And if you have nuclear weapons, it's a pretty easy guess who will win.
General Soleimani is the man that President Obama said would not be impacted, and John Kerry also said would not be impacted by this Iran deal, that we were not going to impose travel sanctions on him, or we were going to continue to impose them. And here he is going to Russia.
Right off the bat. Yeah, right off the bat, he went to Russia, and he's purchasing weapons. And as we know, the state of Syria is completely disintegrating, and even Bashar al-Assad, the president there, he's saying that he's going to give up regions in the north. And what do they need? They need weapons, and where they're going to get those is they're going to get them through their allies in Iran, and also Russia is also a big ally of Bashar al-Assad. And then you had Russia coming out over the weekend saying, look, the United States, you guys need to get behind the Assad regime to fight. If you want to get rid of ISIS, you need to get behind Assad. And of course, President Obama has famously said that he must go. And now we have in complete mess in the Middle East.
Not that it wasn't before, but let's face it, it's gotten one world of a lot worse recently. And what about all those moderate Syrian rebels that we were helping to train? Whatever happened to those, Kimberly?
Yeah, all those doctors and dentists that President Obama talked about, they were trained in Turkey by the CIA primarily. We spent $4 million per fighter, and we put in 54 of them, and they were called Division 30. They were inserted into northern Syria, and within a week, absolutely all of them have vanished. They are said to have been, some of them have been killed. The general that was running the group was kidnapped. And so the CENTCOM and the military said that they have lost all contact with them, so they're presuming that they're either dead or that they are kidnapped. And if they're kidnapped by the Al-Qaeda affiliate, Al-Nusra Front, then they will probably sell them to ISIS, and we'll be watching them in an upcoming video that ISIS is very good about putting out those propaganda videos. So even CBS came out and said this was an abject failure. This was President Obama's strategy. He was going to spend $500 million in training the moderate Syrian Free Rebels, and their first stint on leaving Turkey and going out and taking the fight to the rebels or whomever they were going to fight didn't work out so well, and we don't know where they are. Some have said that they have actually fled to the Turkish-controlled areas where the Peshmerga are actually, the Kurds are, in control of that part of the country. So who knows where they are? As of this morning, we have heard nothing.
That is just stunning. Not surprising, just stunning that it was such an abysmal failure. One more thing, there's anti-America unrest in Turkey right now. Tell us what you know about that.
Yeah, well, this is a perfect segue actually into what, where these, if there are any of these groups that are these members have actually fled and made it to the safety zone. Over the weekend, we also know that in Turkey that the president decided, President Erdogan was going to allow the U.S. to use one of the military bases that they've been wanting to use, which is near the border with Syria. And instead of taking the fight to ISIS, which Turkey was supposed to do, they did make one cursory, strike on ISIS, and then proceeded to go after the Kurds, who are their enemies. So now we have Turkey going after the Kurds, who were supposed to be our friends, and this is where we're thinking that maybe some of these, U.S. trained rebels have landed, but if they get there, they're going to be killed by Turkish President Erdogan. And this is just another play by Erdogan, who lost in a fairly significant landslide in the last election in Turkey, and he's losing control in the country. And what he's trying to do, which is classic what most dictators try to do, is they try to coalesce the country around a greater, good. We're going to fight the bad guys, and so he's trying to coalesce the country around him, say we really need to get after and get these Kurdish people who are now, unleashing terrorist attacks presumably inside Turkey. So now you've got him trying to consolidate power, in which if he does this, then he can, institute martial law, and then we know that he goes on to be dictator for life. And that's exactly what he's wanted out of all this. So it's all just a Rubik's Cube, and nobody knows how to fix it.
Kimberly, well, keep us updated on it. And coming up next on